Having covered a lot of tax cuts in the past across the board and otherwise, unless they're demonstrable and you can see it and you can feel it and you can spend it and do something dramatic with it, you're going to be angry over it. And that could be something we have to focus on very, very clearly, especially when it comes to can you not write off your state and local taxes. Susan Collins has a plan there. She, of course, a Republican senator in Maine, says maybe you don't bring the corporate rate all the way down to 20%, maybe 22%, and that difference pays for keeping the deduction for state and local taxes. To National Taxpayers Union Executive Vice President Brandon Arnold on what he makes of that. What do you think, Brandon? What do you think of that idea?
Well, I do appreciate Senator Collins stepping to the table and trying to offer some constructive feedback and criticism to improve the bill. But in this case, I think she's gotten it all wrong. If you look at the growth associated with the Senate plan, let's say, 73% of the growth comes from dropping the corporate rate from its current rate of 35% down to 20%. If you start ticking that up, as you suggested, you start to lose some of that economic growth and all the things you just talked about, all the benefits that need to flow from this tax plan, if it's going to be not just a policy success story, but also a political success story, is all dependent on having economic growth. We cannot afford to move that corporate rate up. And to do so in the name of saving the SALT deduction is particularly misguided, because this is a policy that, as your previous panel discussed, has pushed states like New York, New Jersey, California, Illinois to make bad fiscal decisions. They've spent too much money. They've taxed their citizens far too much. And now I think if this deduction is paid back, they're going to be exposed for all the mistakes that they've made.
Do you worry, though, that for those residents in those high-tax states, and I understand the idea, well, don't go ahead and use the federal government as a means of funding these states in their high-tax problems, and we are seeing already in New Jersey where they're reconsidering higher taxes as a result. I get that. But that this is going to have a deleterious effect. There are going to be people in those states, and they're not just a few of them, they represent millions of Americans who are going to be annoyed at a tax cut that isn't what it was sold to be, and it could come back and boomerang on Republicans. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a problem, and I am very sympathetic to the folks in these high-tax states. I do not want their taxes to go up. Let's be clear about that. But at the same time, it's almost comical for some of these state officials to be going out there and being upset because they may be facing a policy coming out of Congress that could potentially, may or may not, raise taxes on millionaires in this state, and that's getting in the way of their desire to 100% absolutely raise taxes on millionaires in their state.
Do you think this is going to be a big deal if it passes?
I do.
I
think the growth associated with this is very well documented by economists, the corporate rate cuts, the cost recovery provisions, as well as infusing a lot of cash in through the individual side of the code, reducing rates on families through the child tax credit increase, the standard deduction increase. Things like that are going to pay a lot of dividends for the economy.
All right. Very good having you, Brandon. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, there's another allegation against Al Franken for inappropriate touching, and it